A British couple are feared to have been taken hostage by Somali pirates near the Seychelles. A search is underway for the couple who've been sailing to Tanzania as part of a round-the-world trip. A man's arrested after a teenage girl was found dead on a farm in County Durham. The credit card crackdown. Ministers outlined plans to tackle Britain's personal debt problem. One of the 3 people convicted over the death of baby Peter wins an appeal against his indeterminate prison sentence. And swimming with dinosaurs, the amazing discovery of a colossal sea monster in Devon.
On BBC London, the fears cutbacks could lead to cattle-class travel on the underground. And horseback patrols, the police response to an increase in rural crime.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the BBC's News at 1. A search is underway for a British couple who are feared to have been taken hostage by Somali pirates. Paul and Rachel Chandler from Tunbridge Wells were sailing their yacht, the Lynn Rival, towards Tanzania when they released a distress signal. Our security correspondent Frank Gardner reports.
Happier days for Rachel and Paul Chandler, a British couple now believed to be held by Somali pirates. Their yacht, the Lynn Rival, was seized last week in the Indian Ocean. The Chandlers' route took them south from Turkey, through the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, over to India, and then in April they reached the Seychelles. After 6 months there, they set sail westwards for Tanzania, unfortunately taking them right into an area where several ships have been recently attacked by pirates.
They really were sailing into the lion's den. There is no way, we're not recommending any private vessels, any private operators take their yachts anywhere in the Indian Ocean region currently.
Well, this is the blog of the Lynn Rival, the yacht that the Chandlers have been sailing around the Indian Ocean in. And it gives some clues here as to where they've been, what they've been doing. Not a huge amount, but it says, for example, July 22nd, midwinter in the Seychelles, and then Wednesday, 21st of October, farewell Seychelles. Now, the very next day, Thursday, last week, is when they're believed to have been snatched by the kidnappers, by the pirates, and the following day, there's a message posted to their blog saying, please ring Sarah.
They're very experienced at these things, and they're not the sort of people that put themselves deliberately in danger and so on, and all of us in the family are extremely upset by what's happened.
Somali pirates have attacked shipping far out to sea. These ones were stopped by French Marines. But so far this year, they've seized over 30 ships and held nearly 600 sailors for ransom. The Foreign Office is urgently investigating if the Chandlers are now indeed the latest hostages. A ransom demand for their release is expected any day now.
Well, Frank's with us for more. So, Frank, what is the likely process then in terms of trying to secure their release?
Well, it'll start almost certainly with a ransom note. The Foreign Office has not yet received official confirmation that they've been held, but certainly the reports coming out of Somalia indicate that they are being taken towards the Somali port of Haradire by a crew who have been actively involved in piracy before in several major hijackings. The Seychelles government has got an intensive search underway. The Americans have launched unmanned aerial vehicles. There's an EU maritime force that's searching, of course, a vast area of navy. So I have to say the chances of any of the authorities intercepting this yacht and finding them are pretty small. The chances are they're going to be taken to the Somali coast where they will be relatively well treated. This isn't viewed as terrorism. It's a commercial extortion racket whereby the pirates usually issue the ransom demand, usually for millions and millions of pounds, and then gradually it's negotiated downwards. Most people are held for about 2 months and eventually released. But of course, most of the sailors are belonging to big maritime shipping companies. These two were private individuals from Tunbridge Wells.
OK, more on that to come, no doubt. Frank, for now, thank you. Police have arrested a 32-year-old man after the body of a teenage girl was found on a farm in Sedgefield in County Durham last night. Police say the 17-year-old, believed to be from Darlington, may have met her attacker on the internet. Well, let's speak now to our news correspondent, Catherine Marston, who has more. Catherine.
Well, you can see the site of all the police activity just behind me. You can say that forensic officers are here examining the scene. The police believe that the 17-year-old had left home on Sunday night. She told her mum that she would be back sometime around lunchtime on Monday. But what the police now believe is that she had befriended somebody via a chat room on the internet and that she had eventually met up with that person.
It's very worrying. There's a good possibility, a strong possibility that we're working on, that the suspect and the victim in this case have actually met via the internet, via some form of chat room. And I would really like to stress to everybody out there, parents and children, just be 100% certain who you're talking to. Do not meet anybody from the internet anywhere that isn't safe.
Well, the discovery of this 17-year-old's body came last night, and it followed the arrest of a 32-year-old man in the area, and that was for some traffic offences. During questioning, that man gave the police some evidence, and that led them here to the scene of the 17-year-old's body being found. Now, the police say a man is still being held in custody. As yet, he is unidentified. He's given several different names, and the police say they're now having to use fingerprint evidence to try to work out who this person is, but he's still being held in custody and will be questioned later today.
Catherine, thank you. Credit card companies have been warned they have to clean up their act. The government says complicated terms and conditions can exploit customers and leave them paying far too much interest on their bills. Proposals are being put forward to make it easier for people to pay off their debts and to stop companies raising credit limits without permission. Our business correspondent Mike Sargent has more.
We may not be quite as hooked on credit as we were, but even in recession, millions are paying on plastic. The government says customers are feeling confused and exploited. Many end up paying much higher charges than they expect.
People do feel let down by that kind of practice, and it is buried away in the small print. We need to be more transparent, but we also need to see whether or not some of these practices should be banned.
Most experts say one of the worst things you can do is take out cash on your credit card for shopping. That's because you'll immediately be charged a very high rate of interest, around 20%, and these debts are often the last to be paid off.
That's one of the things the government wants to stop, the practice of paying off cheap debts first, but expensive cash debts last. The government also thinks minimum monthly repayments are too low. That means it can take decades for people to clear their debts. Another complaint is that credit limits are suddenly increased, giving people the impression they can easily borrow more. Terence Maguire knows what it's like to face a mountain of debt. He says a card company jacked up his interest rate to almost 35%.
Once they've got you and they've got you hooked, that's when the killer blows come. The interest rate increases, the extended credit levels, just to keep you in debt. As long as you're servicing your debt, they're happy for you to service that debt because you're making them more money.
But used carefully, credit cards can be handy. They can offer consumers more protection and allow people to smooth out their finances. Lenders also say they've become much more open about their charges.
There's no mystery about using credit cards. We have a responsibility to use our credit cards sensibly, just as much as the credit card companies have a responsibility to make sure that they're being fair to us.
Consumer groups have welcomed the government's plans, but say they could seriously dent the profits of card companies, who may then look for new ways to charge us for credit. Mike Sargent, BBC News.
The Royal Mail and Communication Workers Union are locked in talks this lunchtime to try to resolve the postal dispute. If no agreement is reached, there could be another 3 days of strikes beginning on Thursday. With John Moylan's at the talks at TUC headquarters in central London. What do you know in terms of how the talks are progressing then, John?
Well, the talks started again at 9 o'clock this morning after 7 hours of talks yesterday. And of course, what both sides are trying to do is find enough common ground, as you say, to avert the strikes that are planned for the end of the week. Now, the really interesting development this lunchtime is that at 2:30, the union executive is due to meet here to get an update on progress so far. And that's really important because at the end of the day, it is the union's executive which will take a decision as to whether or not these strikes are going to go ahead. Now, no one is suggesting that peace is about to break out here this afternoon, but I think what we've got is a recognition and action about the fact that time is running out. These strikes are pending.
And there's that other issue as well, isn't there, of potential legal action taken by the union against Royal Mail over the use of temporary workers.
Yes, Royal Mail this week have started employing the first of around 30,000 temporary agency staff to deal with the big Christmas volume of mail, which always ramps up at this time of the year, but also to deal with the backlog caused by strikes. Now, the union claims these people are going to be doing something else as well, strike breaking. They're going to be used to do the work of people who are legitimately out on strike in an industrial dispute. So the union intends to take legal action to seek an injunction in the High Court to stop these agency workers being employed. And we expect that to happen, if not today, certainly soon.
John, thank you. John Moylan there. 25. Now, its head alone was 2.5 metres long. It could have swallowed a human in a single gulp. The pliosaur, said to make a T-Rex look like a kitten, terrorised the oceans 150 million years ago, and now scientists believe the biggest ever example of the giant sea creature's skull has been unearthed. It took a collector 5 years to dig up the bones. Well, they've now been pieced together and put on display, as Rebecca Morell reports.
We have the tip of the skull, the snout here. The eyes would be sitting in here. So the skull that long sitting on top of the lower jaw would be something like that high at the back.
It's one of the biggest finds of its kind and a record breaker for Britain. This is the fossilised skull of a colossal sea monster called a pliosaur that lived 150 million years ago.
But to get a whole skull like this is like Christmas and Easter and everything rolled into one. Because we actually can see, yes, this really was an absolutely enormous animal. And realistically, probably the most powerful predator that ever lived.
These creatures once terrorised the oceans. Their immense jaws and razor-sharp teeth made easy work of passing prey. And after this remarkable find, paleontologists think they could be dealing with a beast that was as much as 60 metres long. That's at least 3 times bigger than a crocodile and 10 times longer than one of us.
This is just near where the discovery was made. It was entombed in these rocks for more than 150 million years. This whole area used to be covered by a tropical sea, and as a result, it's considered by many to be a real geological treasure trove.
Well, look there, there's a piece of a fossilised oyster. The collector found a great big chunk of bone, which was the clue. There was more there, and he spent the next 4 or 5 years coming back every single time after a storm, after rain, and as a result has recovered this incredible fossil.
Experts think that the sea monster's body may still be in the cliffs, but it could be another 100 years before the rest of this giant makes an appearance. Rebecca Morell, BBC News, the Jurassic Coast, Dorset.
Now at 1:30, a reminder of our top story. A search is underway for a British couple who it's feared have been taken hostage by Somali pirates. Still to come on the BBC News Channel, the launch of the Ares rocket from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. You're looking at live pictures there. We're expecting that in the next 15 minutes. But that is it for now from the news at 1 this lunchtime. It's goodbye from me. On BBC One, we join the BBC's news teams where you are.